And good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Thank you again for being here for New Earth Practices. It's great to see you all here today. Itchy beard today. All right, good morning, everybody. Like I said, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. So, I want to thank you again for being part of episode number 3 of New Earth Practices. Today we're going to be talking about the heart and the heart path. But before we do, let's go ahead and take a moment now. And let's begin the first 2 phases of breath. Okay, phase 1, that which is the cleansing breath. Deep breath in, deep breath out, deep breath in, deep breath out. One more time, deep breath in, and deep breath out. And now we're going to take a minute to go into the heart rate variability breath. Okay, so again, it's all nasal breathing, no mouth breathing whatsoever. Okay, and as we do that, 4 seconds in, 6 seconds out, no pauses in between the breath. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so there again is heart rate variability. Just doing a 1-minute demonstration of it. But like I said, when you start doing it for about 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes, you're going to be amazed at just how you feel, right? You're feeling your heart rate slowing. You're feeling the equilibrium of your body coming together. You can feel the parasympathetic nervous system being stimulated. You feel yourself in this great state of calmness. As I said, this has many different health benefits to itself as well too, right? It can help people with diabetes, it can help people with stroke, it can help people with high blood pressure, right? There's many different benefits that heart rate variability has. But our main reason for using it is to going into this subtle low idle state, right? So where again, you're just quieting yourself because you're stimulating the parasympathetic nervous system. You're going into that natural calmness, you're going into easement, right? And that's what we want. And as I've talked about yesterday, like I said, we're working together with the peripheral pillars, okay? And remember that we're just studying, or rather witnessing, our senses one at a time, right? So we look at what is before us. Take in everything that you see right now. Take in everything that you hear right now. Take in everything that you smell right now. Take in everything that you taste right now. Take in everything that you touch right now. When you basically stimulate all 5 of those senses, and you're just aware of each sense one by one, now we take it all in at once. And do you see how thought stops? Do you see how the chattery monkey mind no longer starts chattering? Because you're just bringing your focus and awareness to all 5 senses simultaneously. Everything you see, smell, taste, touch, and hear. You're bringing that into yourself simultaneously. And you're just still. You're just completely quiet because your awareness is with the senses, right? that again is helping you to go into the right brain. That again is helping you to go into the nonlinear mind, right? So the lesser the thoughts that you have within your mind, the greater that you are moving into the right brain, right? That's how it works. If we have, again, that chattery monkey mind that never stops talking, that's just going a mile a minute with constant thoughts, right? And we're entertaining those thoughts, we stay within the left brain. We stay within linear thinking. We stay within the linear mind. Right? That's not really going to get us anywhere. That just keeps us anchored in the material, physical plane. But it's when we do these simple exercises, right? You're doing your cleansing breath, you're doing your heart rate variability, you're doing the peripheral pillars, you're taking everything in at once, and you're feeling all of those thoughts minimalizing, right? They're getting smaller and smaller, getting lesser and lesser in frequency, and that's you moving into the right brain. And again, we're continuing to do the heart rate variability. We're continuing to just stay there. And like I said, another breath comes out of the heart rate variability. So again, if you guys haven't heard of Forrest Knudsen, I would suggest you check out his channel. Okay, he is one of the best teachers on YouTube, period. Right? And I don't say that lightly because I'm aware of quite a lot of teachers on YouTube. But Forrest is by far one of the best, one of the very best. His information is profound. It's excellent, right? The reason why he's so profound is because he's legit. It's because he's genuine. It's because he's truthful. He shares this information with a very open, wide heart, right? And that is, all due respect, very rare to see these days. This is why I appreciate the heck out of the guy, right? This is why I did an interview with him not too long ago. We had a great conversation, and I talk to him every now and then just about certain things. We kind of just exchange knowledge back and forth. I'm teaching him more about just working with the self, about basically projecting the self into the hand and being able to work and calibrate your chakras just that way, right? He talks about Om Japa, which is also very powerful, where you're basically just mentally chanting Om into your chakra centers. And I've done that too, and that's very powerful. But what I'm also sharing with him is just how to go into the self and just start projecting the self and letting the self calibrate your body into perfection as well. So those are, again, alternatives. So like I said, we kind of share information back and forth. It's like I'll teach him something and he can teach me something back, and we exchange in that particular way. So it's great. I've learned a lot from him. So again, great channel. Just type in his name, Forrest Knudsen, right? Last name is Knutson, all right? And you can watch some of his videos. They're excellent, excellent videos, all right? So again, this is why I say we're doing heart rate variability. Like I said, I've done it in the past, but I didn't really know what to call it, right? And then Forrest came along, and he's giving all these definitions and terms about what these things are. Like, oh, okay, yeah, because I remember I breathe in, and I make the breath out longer, right? He said, yeah, that's heart rate variability. I'm like, oh, okay. I've been doing it all along. That's great. So just looking at these simple practices and him being able to put these terms on it certainly makes it a lot easier to talk about. So it's great. Okay. So anyways, guys, we're going to go into our topic today about the heart and the heart space, or the heart breath, I should say. Okay. So why the heart? What's this big fixation with the heart? Shouldn't we be looking up here? This is what modern science is always talking about. It's always talking about the brain, how fascinating the brain is, how deeply complex the brain is, the benefits of the brain. Well, yes, the brain is a fantastic organ. There's no doubt about that, right? It's like a switchboard, right? It's what's actually taking us from the left brain to the right brain, right? When we go into the right brain, we have that expansiveness, we have that spaciousness, right? We have that big picture feeling, and that's great. But what actually gets us to the left brain to the right brain is not the brain itself, it's the heart, right? The heart really is the central focus here when it comes to the greater work, right? The inner work that you're doing focuses upon the heart. The heart is the epicenter to God. It is where God dwells. If you were actually able to look inside your heart and look at it on a deep spiritual level, you would actually see a spirit light. You would see spirit light contained within the heart, right at the back. It even goes into the Upanishads, where the Upanishad says that the soul is contained in the heart and that it is like a flame no larger than a thumb contained in the heart, right? That is where Spirit dwells. It resides within the heart. This is why we connect with the heart a lot more. You will notice a grand difference that comes out of a person when they are heart full or when they are heartless, right? Now, of course, we all have a heart, yes, but do we use it? It's not just the idea of an organ that pumps blood. It's a lot more deeper than that. It is the literal house of spirit. And so this is what we are learning to open a lot more. As we open up the heart, this is what's bringing us into the abode of God, right? God lives inside the heart. So the more that you're working with your heart, when you're even doing the heart rate variability, bring your awareness to the heart while you do it. You're doing heart breathing. As you're doing heart breathing, you're imagining that this is the chamber door, and the chamber door is opening up more and more as you breathe into the heart. Okay? So when you're doing your cleansing breaths, just bring your awareness to the heart. When you're doing your heart rate variability breaths, bring your awareness to the heart. Okay? Feeling the heart opening up. What I'm going to teach you guys today is just a simple heart breath that you can do additionally. Okay? You can either do this before or after the heart rate variability. It's up to you. All right? But this is a very good tactic. Again, if many of us who are still attempting to understand, well, Brad, how do I connect to the higher self? Right? I've talked about me working together as a spirit operator, right? Where I'm helping you to bridge your connection to the higher self. And most people have been able to do that. Some have not. Okay? Some in that sense just feel like they're still down here. They're living below the heart. I'll just call it in that sense living beneath the heart. And we want to open up the heart. We want to bring in that breath. We want to bring in the presence of the heart and open up those doors. Right? So we're going to do a very, very simple breath. As I talked about on the Friday webcasts, through the Friday webcasts, I have revealed what's known as the Xyz Axis Breath, right? Or I could just refer to it as the Axis Breath to be simple, right? That's basically where you're breathing down, out through the perineum. You're breathing forward into the heart and out, and you're breathing to the side, out to the other side, okay? This is the Axis Breath, okay? We're not going to do that today. I'll be demonstrating that again on Friday with New Earth TV Live. But what we're going to do today is we're just going to do a simple heart breath, something even more simpler than that, okay? So all we're doing is this. We're taking our hand out like this, okay? Our hand's directly in front of us. We're going to take a deep breath in and slowly breathing out through the mouth. Touching our chest, touching the heart. Breathing in. Extending the hand, breathing out. Breathing in. Breathing out. And we're just repeating this, okay? So it's about you can do this before the phase 1 breath, right? If you're doing a deep cleansing breath, okay? You can do that beforehand, or do your deep cleansing breath, then do a few heart breaths, and then go into heart rate variability, okay? That's something you can do. What we want to do is we want to facilitate as much breath into the heart as possible per day, okay? So I'll repeat that again. We want to facilitate as much breath as possible into the heart per day, okay? And it's even great if you can keep count, okay? If you have 10,000 breaths into the heart, I can guarantee your heart will be open, and you'll be able to go right to the higher self, right? So if you want to be very analytical about it, you can count the number of breaths that you're actually putting into the heart per day. You don't have to do that. That's, again, maybe for the analytical minded, all right? But nonetheless, it can be helpful. If you can bring in 10,000 breaths into the heart, right, all together, I can guarantee your heart's going to be wide awake. It's going to be wide open, and you'll have no problem building that bridge to the higher self. All right, so something to keep in mind. So As we continue to do that heart breath, it's very simple. Like I said, you're just breathing in, you're extending the hands. It's kind of like an accordion, right? You're just unfolding the accordion, folding it in as you bring it into the heart. Now, like I said, the XYZ breath also does that, just in 3 different directions, right? Because you're going up here, and you're intersecting with the heart, and it goes all the way down to the perineum. You're coming out here from the right, exhaling, touching the heart as it goes out the other side. You're coming out through the front, just as we did, touching the heart, coming out through the back. Only what we're doing with the heart breath is we don't have to concern about it coming out the back. Okay, that's the XYZ breath. And the final part is you're going into the center, right? Your hands are just like this. And it's like you're just pulling. You're pulling the energy of the heart, making it wider. Okay? If you want to incorporate that into the heart breath, you can do that as well. So we do this. And then we can do this, as this is part of the axis breath. Okay? So we're attempting to get as much of our awareness of breath into the heart as possible. And the more that you're doing this, you're opening up the doors to the heart. Well, Brad, what's so special about that? Well, you're going to start living through the heart a lot more. You cannot live through a closed heart, right? It's like going to a house that's all boarded up, right? The doors are boarded up, the windows are boarded up, it looks abandoned. So you're not really going to want to live in a place like that. But what about a nice warm house, but the door is open, birds are flying around it, it's all very well maintained, the door is open, it's for you. You go into that house and you live there. Well, that's what we're doing. We're making our house an open, warm, and welcoming place to live, right? As I talked about in the BCR technique, that you want to learn to live inside. You want to learn to live inside the heart, okay? This is how you know God, okay? And a very important thing to realize, man cannot know God. Only God knows God. Okay? It goes back to an old analogy that Advaita Vedanta would use quite commonly. The analogy of the clay pot. That through the clay, the pot itself is formed. Now that clay is one with itself, and that clay is one with the pot. But that pot is not one with the clay. Because that pot is simply a form. It's a material. It's an appearance that has come and merged from the clay. But the pot, by being a pot, can never know the clay. It can never know to how it resides. But when you move out of that appearance and you come into the substance of the clay, now you know to how you have come. Right? It's the same thing with humanity. If we continue to live as a man, a woman, and we are only seeing ourselves in form, we will never know God. Right? Man, woman can never know God. It is when you go out of that clay pot and you come into the substance of spirit, the substance of God, that you therefore know God. Right? And the heart takes you there. The heart is the platform. The heart is the house. The heart is the temple to where you can commune with God, to where you bond in harmony with God, right? You can call it God, you can call it Creator, you can call it Source, you can call it the Divine, whichever you prefer, it doesn't matter. I call it God because I'm completely at peace with that word. I know some people are not. Say, Brad, stop saying God. What's going on here? I feel like I'm in a religious sermon here. Yes, I'm not talking about religious God. I'm not talking about man's God. I'm talking about the true God, because true God resides within you, within every single one of us. It is not some bearded dude in the sky ready to pitch a lightning bolt at you if you don't worship him. Okay? That's not what I'm talking about. Right? We're hanging up that old religious context because that would be incorrect. That is erroneous knowledge. Right? The true knowledge is that God, that Source, that the Divine, that the One, that the Creator resides within your heart, because you are all those things. Right? You are not separate from God other than the illusion that you cast. And that illusion that you cast is bondage. That illusion that you cast is linearity. That illusion that you cast is life through duality. Life doesn't even become life through duality, it becomes survival, right? So you basically have a survival life by existing within duality, by remaining in bondage, by remaining in conflict, because your heart is hard. And what we're learning to do is to unravel the heart, is to open up the great doors, right? Open up the gates to this beautiful house. We're not making it an abandoned property. We're not putting up boards. We're not nailing everything down. So it looks like it's just this old rundown shack that nobody would want to live. Oh no, there's cobwebs everywhere. Everything's boarded up. It looks dilapidated. Looks like it's falling apart. I don't want to live there. So what we're doing is we're sprucing up the homestead. Okay? We're sprucing up the house that resides within ourselves, because that's the house of God, right? It's not some outside church that you go to. It's not some outside temple that you go to. Those are all fine and dandy. But that's not the true church. That's not the true temple. That's not the true ashram, right? The true temple, the true house is here. It's inside you, right? And that's what we're sprucing up. That's what we're making well, right? So this is why we're doing the breath inside the heart. This is why we're counting those breaths if we want to, right? We can just take a little notepad. We just mark it down. Choo, 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 choo. Okay, 5, 10, 20, 100,000, 10,000. Wow. Brad said if I get to 10,000 heart breaths, I'll be good with a higher self. I can guarantee you that. Okay. So like I said, you don't have to count, but if you do, that's something you can, again, work towards. All right? So the important thing here is just being able to include the heart with your breathing, right? Even if you don't decide to do the heart breath like I've taught you here, if you just want to work together with the cleansing breath and you just want to work together with heart rate variability, that's great. But just be aware of the heart as you're doing the breathing. Okay, it's very important. As you breathe in, as you breathe out, feel like the heart is breathing in and breathing out, right? So it's rather than looking at your nose, right? Of course, we're breathing in and out through the nose, but we're imagining that the nose is contained in the heart, right? The nose is now in the heart, and we're now breathing it in and we're breathing it out. Okay, and like I said, the more that you are opening up the doors of the heart, the more that you can go to God. Okay, that's what's enabling us from going to the left brain to the right brain, right? To going into the right brain is through that willingness, is through that openness to do this work, right? If we're saying, I'm not willing to do this, I'm not listening to Brad or anything he says, I'm not going to listen to this stuff at all. Ugh, humbug, right? Your heart is not into it, right? By you being able to do this work takes an open heart to do it, right? So the heart is responsible. You're the one that's guiding yourself through the heart to doing this work, right? Like I said, if you've already done the BCR technique, if you've already done the 30 days, great. This is, again, the additional information, the additional knowledge that you can acclaim to going deeper, right? Because what we're doing is we're going to be exploring the non-dual, okay? That will be the subject of tomorrow's teaching, is about the non-dual, living in the non-dual, going to God, right? Moving into the heart space, creating that beautiful home, and moving into God, and what can come through the non-dual. Everything. Absolutely anything and everything and everyone, right? All that is. So it's just very important that we're working together with opening up the heart. We're transforming ourselves from within. Like I said, you already have the BCR technique that gets you started with that, right? If you guys have not watched the BCR technique, that's okay. You can still do New Earth practices. But what I would recommend is doing it. If you're enjoying what I'm talking about here through the past 3 episodes, then you're going to love what is contained in the BCR technique, because we go into a great amount of depth, and it is really so simple, right? It's all about transforming your life. It's turning yourself around, right? I was even putting out a post last night on Facebook talking about the nature of perfection, right? Because again, we often feel like, we're imperfect, we're human beings, we err, and that's true. As long as you see yourself as a human being, you will err. You will flaw, right? You will be in bondage, and you will be in conflict. That's the nature of the human being. The human being will continue to exist in an imperfect shell because they have excluded God. Brad, what did you say? I said they will continue to live in flaw because they have excluded God from their life. That's why you're in flaw. That's why you're in bondage. That's why you're in conflict, right? You are not bringing in consciousness. You're living through your life through all these material things. You're living these mundane aspects, and you again make a mountain into a molehill, or a molehill into a mountain. Whatever one you want to choose. But it's all of this particular form of bondage that's coming together. And that's what's keeping us at bay from going into that divination that we truly are. It's when we include God in life. It's when we know who we really are. Do we see ourselves just as that clay pot, or do we see ourselves truly as the clay? The imperfect can never know the perfect. And the counter argument is, well, isn't the imperfect perfect? No, because that becomes a contradiction. That's like calling lack love. Right? If you're in bondage and you're in conflict, God knows nothing of bondage. God knows nothing of conflict. Conflict and bondage are human ideas. They're not God's, right? God is perfection. God is the infinite. God is harmony, right? And if you're not incorporating that into yourself whatsoever, that's why you're in bondage. That's why you're in conflict. That's why you're in chaos. You look at all of the problems of the world from a human perspective. You don't look at it from God's perspective. And that's why we're in bondage. That's why we're in flaw. That's why a pencil needs an eraser. Okay? You can basically look at the human being as a living pencil, right? Here's what they can draw with, and oh, made a mistake, here's the eraser, right? But when you're with God, it's not even about having a pencil. It's through your thought, through your intention. All life springs. So, why people are in bondage is because they have excluded God consciousness from themselves. They do not know themselves to be great. They hold grudges. They hold all of these harsh squabbles and harsh troubles because they feel it's a part of their identity. Well, again, this is all human behavior. This is all the nature of human. We have spent so much time in our life looking at what it is to be human rather than looking at what it is to be God. Because that's who you are. You're not a human being. This is a canvas that you wear. This is a wardrobe. This is a garment that you're wearing. If you do not know what exists beyond the garment, you do not know yourself. And if you are only basing life based upon the garment and the wardrobe that you wear, you will continue to attract flaw in your life because you're not including God into anything that you're doing. You're not including consciousness into whatever it is that you're doing. When you step aside and you let God take care of things, everything gets done in harmony, right? And that is the perfection. Harmony is the realization of perfection. That's its nature. When you exercise harmony, you are bringing forward perfection, right? So when I'm basically having squabbles with people, when I'm having squabbles about the world, but when I just step back and I go into the heart and I feel spirit and I know that I am spirit and I'm bringing this love in and it's so profound and it's so powerful and I command that love through thought action to harmonize all of those things that I was squabbling about, and now everything is laid to rest in the peace. I brought God in to harmonize it all. Now you understand. Now you realize who you really are. This is what we're doing in the BCR technique, right? We're accumulating love. By accumulating love, we're accumulating God. We're accumulating pure consciousness. And we're putting it to work. As we put it to work, everything that represents the bottom feeding conflict of bondage now starts to dissipate away. Because we stepped aside and we let love take care of it. We let God take care of it. God, take care of it. Done. How am I feeling? I feel good. I can feel all this activity happening through me. I can feel like the bondages are releasing. I feel like a fly that has escaped the spider's web. Right? That's what we're doing. Right? As long as you are living as a human being, you're a fly caught into a spider's web. Maybe the spider hasn't come along yet, but you're still caught up in a web saying, why can't I go? Why aren't I free from this? Why do I feel shackled? because I'm looking at everything from a human perspective. I'm not looking at things from the God perspective, because the God perspective knows how to let go of bondage. Have I learned how to let go of bondage? Well, no. As long as I continue to work with the human equation, I'm going to be stuck in bondage, because my heart feels like that abandoned house. But when my heart is open again, I now know that I go to God to resolve all of my troubles. God clears it away. All I have to do is step out of the way and let God go to work, right? So I am his temple. I am her temple, right? I am the temple of God, and I am walking this earth. And it is not I, but the Father, the Mother that worketh through me. Okay? It's, again, all about those old proverbs, and those things are indeed true. Right? The entire nature of the Holy Bible, as it were, is just a Western version of the Bhagavad Gita, the Upanishads, the Mahabharata, right? It's the Western version of it. And through those stories, a lot of it is a lot more figurative than literal, right? The examples shared in the idea of a Bible in that sense, many people are trying to decipher it literally, and they're missing the point. There's some aspects that are literal, but the majority of it is figurative. It's a book of code. That's the nature of it, right? Do you really think a bunch of people are going to be wandering the desert for 40 years? We've been wandering this desert for 40 years. Maybe I'll give him another 2 years, and after that I'll call it quits. Right? This is all about the idea of the ego. That we keep feeling that we're trusting the ego, and it's like wandering in a desert. Okay? The desert is the ego. That's the figurative expression here. It's not about a bunch of followers following Moses into the desert and wandering around the desert for 40 years. You can't do that. Right? Literally. Can't do that. It's figurative. It is the desolation of the ego. That they were constantly living through the ego, and Moses was basically acting as the higher self to bringing them to God. Right? Moses lives within yourself. It's the idea of the guide. It's the idea of the helper. It's the idea of that higher light that's taking you to God. So therefore you would receive manna from heaven to eat. It is not a physical substance, right? The manna is spirit. It's the idea of them enriching their souls, right? Has nothing to do with trying to find, oh, where's this physical manna that they talked about when they were in the desert with Moses? What's going on here? A lot of it is figurative, okay? Just like the Mahabharata, just like the Bhagavad Gita, etc. A lot of it is more figurative than literal. Yes, these people can exist, but they are being used as templates, as an example to showing you the inner conflict that resides within yourself and the inner resolve that comes out of it. That's what the Bible truly represents, and this is even what the church dwellers don't even know. They take it so literally. And that's why they're lost, because they create erroneous knowledge, because they do not understand the code, right? It's all about working within yourself. It's a book of the soul, right? When you're looking at the Bhagavad Gita, when you're looking at the Mahabharata, when you're looking at the Holy Bible, right? All these are just expressions of the soul, telling you how to live from within. But because we're so contaminated with ego, we feel that, oh my God, they're talking about something literal here. They're talking about something that is outwards. No, they're not. It's no more different than trying to decipher a dream, right? So when you look at it this way, you say, oh, okay, maybe I'll give the Bible a read. I'm not saying you guys need to convert to Christianity or anything like that, but therefore you get the idea of it being a code, right? Of it being like a type of codex. The same thing with the Bhagavad Gita, the same thing with the Mahabharata, all of them. They're all just codexes. And they're teaching you how to live inside by citing these examples, because that is how they would initiate people. That's how they would do studies on these texts, so that people could understand the true nature of the code that is being shared, and one with an open heart would understand, right? So that again debunks the whole nature of the shoddy religions, right? About trying to look at this outside, because really the whole idea is you don't need a religion. You don't need them at all. It's all about the idea of learning to live inside, and that you're working together with the nature of Scripture, if you wish, to understand the true nature of who you are. That if you're constantly wandering around a desert for 40 years, well, that can represent your lifespan. Here's a 40-year-old man, who has been wandering the desert for 40 years. What's he been doing? He's trying to chase after divinity by looking outside of himself, wandering the desolate plain with the ego guiding him. But Moses comes forward and hands him manna from God, representing the idea of moving from the left brain to the right brain, right? To going into God, to eating the manna, right? Having all of this, like Jesus would say, my body is, you can have my flesh, my blood, right? Eat my flesh, drink my blood, so that I can live in you. He was talking about him being the living manna, right? Doesn't mean he wanted people to resort to cannibalism. He was teaching people about, how I am the living bread and that I live within you. Just as God lives within me, I live within you, because he was speaking as God, right? He was talking in that way. He was not talking as Jesus. He was talking as the Christ, right? And the Christ is within you. It's inside the heart. It's that little flame the size of a thumb, the back of your heart, right? So that is what he was sharing. He was talking as God, but people were grossed out. They're saying, what does he want? He wants us to cannibalize him? Oh, how gross. That shows the ignorance. Because again, that shows what the uninitiated think. They don't know. They're looking at all of these things from a literal monkey brain context. And that's a trap, right? There are some things that we do take literally. But when we're speaking about the soul, when we're speaking about the Christ, when we're speaking about spirit, when we're talking about the inner work, a lot of it is figurative. It's analogy, right? Jesus did not want his people to cannibalize him. That is not what he was saying. That as you eat my flesh and drink my blood, I live in you and you live in me. That is the aspect of the Christ, right? That the Christ lives in you and I live within me. You're eating the bread that brings you into the right brain so that you're always with God, right? That's why we go into the right brain, okay? The right brain is the platform. It is the home of God, right? And the heart is the dwelling within ourselves to where God dwells that brings us together. The heart, mind, and the right brain are basically one and the same, right? It's that abode to where God resides. So you're going into the right brain, right? Now, God doesn't truly live in the right brain, but everything that represents the God mind is there, right? And you can access it. And as you go deeper into the heart and you transcend the material plane, you go beyond the body, the mind, right? You go beyond everything that is impermanent. And then you come into the true nature of permanence. Now you see God. Now you see God as God truly is, right? So the right brain is helping us to move upon the plane to where God's abode resides. And now we can access all of the God mind by going into the right brain. This is what the Bible is teaching you guys. This is what the Bhagavad Gita is teaching you. This is what the Mahabharata is teaching you. They're all just teaching about going into the right brain, right? So this is why we're here. This is why we're learning a lot of this. All right? So guys, we're out of time for today. I'm sorry if I didn't get around to any of your questions. Doesn't look like there's any here anyways. Just people having a good time. Actually, no, Tommy has a question here. Let me just take a look at that real quick before we go. Say we don't eat well and our frequency drops. We get irritable, make mistakes, etc. I always wonder how much that trips up our timeline. Can it throw us off our path when we are vibrating low? Yeah, it can, right? So basically your body is accustomed to a certain pattern, right? If we are not abiding by that pattern, the body goes out of whack, right? Because it's not getting the pattern that it's used to, right? It's like a person who's eating 3 meals per day, and all of a sudden they go cold turkey and then decide not to eat anything at all, right? And then they do that for another day. Well, the body's going to be thrown out the whack and saying, hey, hello, what's going on here? Why you were just eating 3 meals a day and all of a sudden you're not eating anything? That's going to create a short circuit in a particular way. So you want to make everything transitional. So as you're transitioning and changing your diet, you're moving through a natural state of transition that's not putting a shock to your system altogether, right? So yes, it can certainly throw you out of whack. So just be aware of that. Go through transition yourself to which is appropriate, but make sure that you're doing the transition. You're not just doing cold turkey effects that create short circuits through the body, right? We want to honor the body, right? The body is our garment. It's our wardrobe. Yes, it's something that is temporary. It is something that is impermanent, but we still honor it, right? So making sure that you're honoring the body. Very important. Okay? Thank you, everybody, for once again tuning into episode 3. Tomorrow, episode 4, we'll be talking more about the non-dual, living in the non-dual. Okay? So I look forward to talking to you all again tomorrow. Take care, and may it be well. Goodbye for now.